Okay, time to look at another law, and in this video we're going to look at a law called the Computer Misuse Act, a law that appeared on the scene in 1990. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up another poster from my old website, and I'm going to sort of talk about this at three different levels. The Computer Misuse Act, as you can clearly see here, is basically, if I just try and put some numbers on it, try and put a 1 there. Oh, not too good. That's supposed to be a 1, a 2, and a 3. What we're trying to get across here, well, not the best of annotations, but I'm sure you get the idea. The Computer Misuse Act can be broken into three sort of levels of seriousness, if you like. Now, this first level here is saying don't access unauthorized data. And if I quickly walk you through the poster, clearly the monkey's got all top secret, and then he goes, and it basically it's a bank's website, bank's servers, and he's going my plan, and you can see here bank PC my account, and that's over here. That's him planning to commit, actually planning to commit the crime. And the third level is, of course, he's downloading it now. He's actually downloading the money. So what we have is breaking into something is naughty. Planning to do something else after you've broken in is naughtier. And of course the naughtiest thing of all that you can do is actually download the money. Or change. Ultimately it comes into changing unauthorized data. But what I want to focus on at this first level is it says don't access unauthorized data. Well, what is unauthorized data? Now, most people will, of course, probably associate this law with high-level hacking. And the reality is it will only ever be implemented against high-level hacking. But I want you to think about something for a moment. Let's say the highest level hacking that you could get, I think globally, if I give you, is probably something like the Pentagon in America. And of course the British equivalent, I think, is MI6, isn't it? So let's say that's the top end of the scale. And that's the most serious level of hacking. Let's go to the other end of the scale. And we'll just put here your friend's user area. Now, if you access your friend's user area, you're accessing data that you haven't got permission to get into. And if you access stuff at the Pentagon, you're accessing data that you haven't got permission to get into. So in fact, both of these are crimes that are at level 1. So if you happen to know the person next to you, know their password, and occasionally you just log in for a bit of fun, see what they're doing, you're actually breaking the Computer Misuse Act. Now, of course, at this end of the scale, let's face it, I don't think anyone would really say that there's no crime. No, there is a crime, no crime that you end up in court. If you access the Pentagon MI5, for example, if you search for, I think his name's Richard McKinnon. I know it's McKinnon. If we put, I don't want to put it here now, just crime. Quite clearly there's a crime. But, where's the line? Where does a non-crime, actually that's better, put non-crime there. Where does a non-crime become a crime? I mean, if you do the Pentagon MI6, okay, well let's start at this end. Well, what about if you hack the police's website, or the police's web servers? You get into the national computer, what do they call it? PNC, Police National Computer. Probably not as serious as the Pentagon, because you're not really after terrorist stuff here, but the police, you might be finding out data about whether somebody in your street's a burglar. Probably not serious, so maybe down here, but I'm thinking still probably a crime. What about if you manage to hack into your local MP's computer? I'm thinking maybe crime. What about if you get into, I don't know, the local doctor or another professional? What about if you get into a teacher's user area at your school? Where's the crime? How serious is it before it becomes a crime? I generally don't know the answer to that, because the law doesn't give any guidance. It just simply says, don't access unauthorized data. It's no more than that. So just a little bit of a concept thing, first of all, is I'm a little bit unsure as to how serious it's got to be before you actually regard as committing a crime. Here's another thing. Let's move on. I'll move on to the slide. We'll keep the same picture. Let's look at level 2, this one now. Don't access unauthorized data and plan to commit a further crime. I'm thinking that's going to be pretty hard to prove. I mean, if you prove someone that has accessed a bank's servers, how can you actually prove that they then plan to steal money? I think that's quite difficult. There is a little story that I will give you. We had, and I almost admire this lad. There was a lad who remained named at a school that I used to teach at. And I want to talk about hacking. And most people think that hacking is incredibly complex, but most hacking actually isn't particularly complex at all. There was I don't know if any of you are watching this now and you're at a school and you're using a network that's created by RMCC3, research machines. This is what they call CC3 network. And when you install it, you're basically given, there's 4 or 5 sort of default user passwords, and it'd be like a password of administrator, and then password, and then you would log in if you're an admin, and you would change the password to something obviously that people wouldn't be able to guess, and you create all the user accounts for all the students. And there was a lad at one of my old schools, and what he did was he just Googled RMCC3, and his literally expression was RMCC3 default passwords. And there were, in fact, he literally Googled that expression, and it came up with a page that gave the sort of there were 4 or 5 defaults, a bit like admin and password being one of them, but there were 4 or 5 of them. And at my old school, what he did was that he tried them all one by one, and one of them worked, and he got in as an administrator on the network. Now, he knew this could be tracked, so very cleverly he created a user at the school called O. Jones, but he made that user an admin account. So what he was able to do was that he could log in as O. Jones, and he was able to delete kids' work that he didn't like. And most of the time he deleted work of kids that I didn't like either, so part of him was just like, hey, go you. But quite clearly, this is an example of, if you create an account that's an admin account, there's no doubt that that clearly gives the idea that you plan to go back in. Okay, there's no doubt that he plans to commit further crimes, and of course the crime is of deleting data, and which is something we're going to come on to on this next level. Actually, if you think about the next level, which I mentioned just over on the bottom right here, I'm using the white pen so it's difficult to see, it says don't access unauthorized data and change it. Let's move on to that, because I think you can see where this is leading to. Don't access unauthorized data and change it. How serious does the change have to be? I mean, if I'm on a network and someone has spelt my name Phillips, and I hack in and I spell it correctly, and there's no doubt that I've changed the data. Is that going to lead to a crime? I'm so annoyed. My local doctor keeps spelling it Phillips, and I've had enough of it. I'm going to hack his computer and spell my name correctly. I'm not thinking I'm likely to go to prison. The kid that did the O. Jones at our school, and he simply deleted files from people's user areas, and bless him, he did get some really horrible kids as well, so I kind of like, yay, go you. We did ban him from the network for a long time, which is interesting. We didn't actually go after, I didn't prosecute him or anything like that, but clearly he's deleted files. So that's kind of naughty, but I'm thinking not prosecution. And it's one of these things again, I mean, how serious does it have to be? I mean, if you hack the Pentagon's computers and you put it down that, I don't know, I don't want to get anything too political. Let's put down that in the Pentagon's computers you put down the, I'm trying to think of something that's, I don't know, I don't really want to play this. Tony Blair. You hack their computers and you create a file that you change. Tony Blair knew all along about WMDs, if you create a document so you change their data and you knew all along, I mean, that's pretty serious, isn't it? I think you're going to prison for that one. And of course, obviously, if you go into a bank and you actually transfer money and you edit someone's bank account so that you get that money, then you're clearly going to prison for that one. But I wonder if is that computer misuse that you're going to really go down for, or are you really ultimately going to go down for theft? Don't really know. But what's interesting is this fact. Under this law, there are in fact very, very few prosecutions. The reasons why there are very few prosecutions: one, it's really difficult to prove. I mean, we've talked about people hacking the Pentagon. If a hacker is good to get in, if they're good enough to get in the first place, chances are they're good enough to cover their tracks. It's pretty difficult to prove hacking cases, to be honest with you. You know, I don't want to get too involved because I don't want to pass judgment, but ultimately, if you want to find someone who's hacking, the people that will be doing that are probably going to be based in the police force, and the police doesn't pay the best money in the world. I'm not implying that policemen don't know what they're doing, because they clearly do, because there are successful prosecutions, but I would probably imagine that a top hacker who's trying to get into banks and Pentagons, as a rule, probably is good enough to cover their bums so that the people that try to trace them can't find them. The other reason why there are very few prosecutions, let's go with the scenario of a bank. And let's imagine now a bank has been hacked and maybe money has been stolen. Maybe somebody plants what they call a logic bomb, which is a logic bomb, by the way, is what we call a remote virus. I mean, ultimately, I suppose, imagine that I'm a hacker. I can get into your bank system, I hack it, I plant a virus in your system. It's not running, but I can trigger it off. I could then, if I wanted to, blackmail you, and you would obviously give me money because you'd be a bit concerned about me triggering off this logic bomb. By the way, don't just like write to banks going, I've planted a logic bomb, give me £1 million, because to be honest, it doesn't work quite that way. I would plant a logic bomb in a place that I knew that only the top man in the network could know where it is, and then he would realise that I really have full control of his network. You just sending an email saying give me £1 million will just end up with you, getting a slap on the wrist by the police. But ultimately, this stuff and blackmailing, do you know what? They pay out a lot of the times. And do you know why they pay out? Because what they don't want is bad publicity. Because if you or I knew that a major bank had people hacking it and extracting, blackmailing, and you knew that your money wasn't safe, you'd withdraw it all. Everyone would do, and that bank would fold. So it does go on, computer misuse. It does happen, but sometimes they don't even bother taking them to court, because if they did, the bad publicity that it would generate would actually mean that they'd lose more money from people withdrawing all their money from their accounts than they actually pay out to the blackmailers. So that's why there are very few prosecutions under the Computer Misuse Act. So let's just go back quickly again. I'll stay on this one. The Computer Misuse Act, 3 levels. Oh, level number 1. You don't access unauthorized data. In other words, don't log on to your mate next to you as him when you haven't been asked to. 2, we shouldn't do it anyway, even if you've been asked to. It's not right. Don't access unauthorized data and plan to commit a further crime. So don't make a note in your diary saying, haha, on Tuesday I will log in again using this user ID and password. And 3, don't access unauthorized data and change it. So if you log in to your mate's user area, go into his Word document and change the spelling of one word and then save it, you've actually broken the 3rd level of this law. You're not going to prison, but what I suggest you do, what I suggest you don't do, is try doing that in the future to other people, because ultimately one day someone might come after you.